Graduate English Address. Candidate for degree of Doctor of Laws, William Seaton Griffin.
Mr. President, friends of Harvard University, and fellow graduates, on my way to Harvard Law School, I decided to share my last couple of days of freedom with my grandfather. Now, he in turn decided to share a couple of things with me. The first was a certified check for a large sum of money. And the second was a piece of advice. Of course, being the Generation Xer that I am, I hope that my receipt of the check wasn't contingent upon my acceptance of the advice. But as it turns out, my fears were unfounded, because the advice was, don't forget who you are, because it's who you are that got you where you are. You see, grandfather is an old-fashioned man, and he is about as far geographically and in many ways metaphysically as one could be from Harvard. He embodies both the poetics and the paradox of the American South. He is an intellectual in rural Texas. While he is an educator by training, he is also in his community a de facto country lawyer, an ad hoc financial advisor, and even a stand-in priest for those in need of emergency confession. So I knew grandfather was onto something, especially when I discovered a little more than 100 years ago, one of Harvard's favorite sons, W.E.B. Du Bois, stood in this position, giving this very address at his commencement. And there he proclaimed that the real task of the Harvard graduate is not simply to have knowledge of scholarship, but rather have knowledge of himself. The same holds true today. From the moment we all matriculated, we have become extensions of the Harvard brand. The requisite apostrophe 98 was permanently affixed to our names. We were given some truncated version of these names at our division.harvard.edu as email addresses. And a friend visiting from a rival institution points out that we even eat our meals in dining halls with trays and cups emblazoned with Harvard logos, lest we forget where, or in some subliminal way, who we are. This Harvard branding has seeped into the public consciousness. The LexisNexis research database contains a record of over 10,000 print articles in the last 3 years alone, which refer to Harvard alumni as Harvard educated, or my favorite, Harvard trained. So, given Harvard's healthy sense of itself as an institution, it's not hard to see how you could lose yourself in Harvard's identity. It almost happened to me. I arrived on campus over 1,000 days ago now, as I suspect many of you did, very confident in myself. I prided myself on how unstereotypically Harvard I am. I am not a legacy. My family is not wealthy yet. And I even have the largest rap music collection this side of the Mississippi. How could I, of all people, lose myself in Harvard? Well, it began innocently enough. As I started to regard the United Nations-like procession of global leaders to campus as regular Harvard events, rather than a chance to refine my own views of world affairs. I began to lose myself in Harvard's identity as I rooted for my dream team law professor to win the trial of the century without examining my own views of justice. It took a lunch table debate with an alumnus when the alum just so happens to be a sitting Supreme Court justice to make me realize that I'm in a place that could have a very profound effect on who I am. And even those of us who come from the most humble of stations in society and hold the most populist of views have to concede that once we enter those gates, we are not in Kansas anymore. So I have the highest honor at the 347th Harvard commencement of giving each of you the advice given to me by my grandfather. Always remember who you are, because it's who you are that got you where you are. So as we look around Tercentenary Theater, realize that we're getting a sneak preview of future leaders in every field of human endeavor. And the commencement finally serves as proof that those other divisions that we hear about actually do exist. And although we were decentralized as students, there's no denying the connection between us at this moment as human beings. We all share common human emotions, curious anxiety, joy, perhaps some embarrassment at the actions of family members today, and above all, a shared sense of privilege conferred along with our diplomas. So as we use this privilege to access the more sequestered spaces of society, we must avoid the temptation to hide smugly in our Harvard clubs and behind our Harvard degrees. Because it is from this point forward that we can prove that we're more than just the spring 1998 collection of Harvard PhDs, MEDs, MPPs, MBAs, MDs, BAs, AAs, and JDs. Because we can have every confidence that the Harvard brand, education and training will ensure that we will be able to define our age over the coming decades. But more importantly, it is the pre-Harvard values instilled in us by people of character like my grandfather, and let us hope, refined at Harvard, that give us the chance to define ourselves as individual human beings every day. Thank you, and congratulations.
I'm always struck by how wise it is to have the students deliver the talks. I don't think any other university I know of does it this way.
They really are extraordinary this year. They compete for these honors.
And they receive excellent coaching and delivery.